Hello and welcome to the Embroidered Elephant channel. My name is Kim and today I am going to be doing a crochet and chat with me. So the project that I have got today is another granny square for my book blanket. So for those who may not have seen any of my videos before, I am crocheting a granny square based on the cover of every book that I finish this year. So far I have over 20, I can't remember exactly how many I have, but I need to catch up on one of the granny squares. And I thought that I would chat to you about how to read more books this year. I know that there are quite a lot of people who would like to read more books or have quite a big library of books at home. I am one of those people, and at the start of the year I wrote down that I would like to finish 12 books this year. I have obviously already surpassed that, which is amazing, and I thought that I would just pass on some advice on how to reach this goal with me if that is something that you would like to do. So as I crochet this granny square, I will be talking to you about my advice on how to reach your goal of reading this year, or just whenever you want to start it. So the granny square that I am working on at the moment, I'm using these two colours, so a yellow and a green grey sort of colour, and that is for the cover of the book Tess of D'Urberville. So I'm going to share some advice per round I do, so let's get started. So the first bit of advice that I would like to give you is to try to carve out some time in your day. So this may be easy for some people. For example, I don't have children. I work and it's just me and my husband, so it's much easier to sort of carve out time in my day. I do appreciate that. However, I have found that even when I am at work and it's a somewhat busy day, I try to get to the office just 10 minutes earlier so that I can just read a chapter or two. And if I have time at lunchtime, I try to sit in a quiet room and again just read a little bit. Even if it's just a couple of pages, it's still progress. One thing that I have started to pay more attention to is doom scrolling. So I'm sure that I'm not alone in saying that sometimes I get home from work and I go to click on a message on Instagram and I just get sucked in to video after video after video of stuff that's not really life-changing. It doesn't impact me. If you ask me a little while afterwards what I spent, you know, half an hour watching, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you most of it. So what I've tried to do is to use my phone a bit less and replace it with books. So I get home from work, I put my phone on loud, but only for calls and sort of direct messages, not notifications. And once I've finished responding to people or you know, doing my Duolingo, I'm learning French. Once I've finished everything that I need to do on my phone, I just try to put it down and pick up my book instead. And I find that I'm much happier when I've finished a chapter as opposed to spending half an hour on YouTube, on social media. Round one done. So my second bit of advice is to use audiobooks. So I recently signed up to my local library. I live in Windsor, and I didn't realise when I signed up that they do have a free audiobook service. So I think that there are a lot of library services that do this, so it's worth inquiring. And basically you can hire an audiobook for free for 3 or 4 weeks, and it just automatically returns it once you are finished, or once your subscription runs out. And I've just found that that is so much easier to sort of help me get through books. So sometimes I do listen to a book just on audiobook, and that's how I get through the whole thing. Sometimes I will go between the two, so when I'm busy using my hands for washing up, or I'm driving to work, or I'm just a bit busy, I will pop the audiobook on where I left the physical book, and then I will sort of move along the chapters when I am able to read physically again. And that's just such a quicker way of getting through the book, and I'm not sure the legalities of it, but there are also people who have uploaded audiobooks onto YouTube, which I found really helpful, again, just to have on in the background if I'm busy doing something, and it's a much quicker way to start getting through the book as well. I will say that it is trial and error, because with some books I would say I didn't imagine the voice of the narrator to be what it is in the book. However, some people are easier to get on with than others, and it's sort of about luck as well. So I'm now on to the third round, my square. And the next tip that I have, and this one I find really useful to myself, is to make a list of the books that you already have. So for me, one of the reasons that I wanted to read more is because I had so many books that were sat on my bookshelf, and I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed because there was a reason that I wanted to read each of them, and I wasn't getting around to any of them. I was just buying more books as they appealed to me, and I wasn't necessarily buying a lot of books, but I would argue that if you're not reading them, it is too many books, if that makes sense. And that's just my personal opinion. So I started using an app called Fable. It was recommended to me by my brother, actually. And one of the things that I really like about it is that I can track all of the books that I've got. And when I'm out in public, I'm in a bookshop or there's a book sale going on, I can have a look at my phone and see which ones I've got already, and I can try to remember why I bought them in the first place. So the advice here is, if you are able to make a list of all the books that you've got, either on a note app on your phone or in a journal, or if you have an app such as Fable or Goodreads or something similar, making a list and keeping a list of all the books that you've got will sort of hopefully encourage you to not buy anymore, and it may also encourage you to read some more, especially if you start to remember the reason that you bought it in the first place and why you wanted to read it. I also found it really helpful to be able to put a number to how many books I've got, and that puts it into perspective that I have quite a lot to get through. 3 rounds down and onto the 4th round, and my 4th bit of advice is to track your progress when you're reading. So if you're anything like me, I run out of motivation quite quickly. So I will start reading a book and I will get sort of 20 pages into a 300 page book, and I will think, oh my god, it's going to take me ages to finish this book, and that puts me off and I don't read as much. When I track my reading, so most books do have chapters, so I use my journal and I also use an app called Fable, and I note down how many chapters a book has, and then as I start getting through them, I tick them off, and that helps me to see the progress that I've made with the book and sort of keep me motivated to finish the book so that I can tick all of the chapters off. And similarly with Fable, the book tracking app that I use, they have a spot where when you're reading, you can put in the total number of pages in the book, or chapters if you want to, and you update it with how many pages you've read, and it gives you a percentage of how much of the book you've finished so far. And I find that really motivating, especially when you sort of get over the 50% mark and it starts to really look like progress. Or another way that I do track my progress, and this isn't for everyone, when there's a book with quite a few chapters, I like to either use 2 bookmarks. So I use one for where I'm currently at, and then I put a bookmark in the next chapter. Or I use tiny scraps of paper that are cut off from sort of scrappy paper. So when you print something off and you have to cut the edges off of an image, for example, I cut those into little bits and I pop those into the book pages again at each chapter, so that I can see how much further it is until I finish a chapter. This is particularly helpful if I only have sort of a lunch break and I'm debating whether to continue reading or whether to sort of stop reading so that I can finish my lunch break on time. When I've got a marker in the next chapter, I can see whether it's likely that I'll get through the next chapter sort of quickly or whether it will take a while. Especially if it's a short chapter, I sort of go through those a lot quicker, and I'd be more inclined to start reading it than if it were a bigger chapter or I didn't know how long it was. Hopefully that makes sense. I would like to apologise as well. I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at my crochet, so every now and then when I look up I'm out of frame, so sorry for that. I am trying. 4 rounds done and 2 more to go. Round number 5 and advice number 5, and this is quite a short one. If you can, take yourself to the library to do some reading, whether this is once a week, once a month, when you can. And the reason that I say this is because in a lot of libraries they have a quiet area, a silent area for reading or for studying. And I find it much easier to get into reading and to continue reading and being less distracted when I'm in an area that's specifically quiet. When I'm out of the house, I'm not thinking about doing the washing, doing the cooking for tonight. I'm not thinking about any jobs or chores that need to be done, and therefore my distractions are a lot lower than if I were at home and I were able to do things such as the washing up or clothes washing. Even sitting in a library for an hour or so, I do find that I make quite a bit of progress. And obviously a tip that goes alongside that is to put your phone on silent or make it phone calls only, so hopefully only the urgent things get through to you if you're needed, rather than all of the notifications that I'm sure that you get. And tip number 6, because this goes along with number 5, is to find yourself someone or a group of people who you can read with. So I say this because a lot of libraries do have reading groups. If you are based in the UK, a shop called Waterstones, which is a bookshop in England, also holds regular book clubs. My one that is close to me holds a book club every month. I think it might be actually 2 or 3. There is one for children's books, and there is one for, I believe that there's 2 other book clubs for adults that they also hold. So I would say definitely keep an eye out for book clubs. So either free ones in shops or in libraries, or I know that there are paid book clubs as well online if you keep an eye out. There are also free ones on certain apps. So for example, again, Fable is the only book tracking app that I've used. So there may be others that are very similar. But for example, on Fable, they have book clubs, and you can either join a book club because you like the types of books that they read and you would like to sort of keep up with that and buy books specifically for that book club, or sometimes you get alerts to say that a book club is reading a book that you have in your to be read pile or in your library. And this is a good motivator because you've got other people reading the book at the same time. You sort of have a time limit as such, and it's just a really nice way of sort of making friends and talking to different people whilst getting through your reading pile. And failing all of this, if you don't have a local library that you want to join or are able to join, or they don't have any local book clubs to you, you could always start up a book club with friends or within your community as well. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money either. You could all pitch together and buy some tea bags and some coffee, some sugar, some milk and some biscuits, and that could be it for the month. But I would say it is well worth starting or speaking to friends, even if you have a reading circle which is reading different books but reading at the same time. That can be quite useful as well. So this is my 5th round. So I'm starting round number 6 and I am on tip or advice number 7. So the next bit of advice that I have is to choose shorter books. So I know personally that I get a little bit demotivated when I choose a book that I really want to read and it's like 500 or 600 words. Don't know why I keep saying words. I haven't used that since school or university when you have to write a project to a set specification. So pages. So it can be a little bit daunting to finish a book that is 500 or 600 pages as opposed to one that is 200 pages. And I would say personally that a book is a book. It sounds like Dr. Seuss. A book is a book regardless of how long it is. So one of the reasons that I finished so many books is because I did specifically look for shorter books in my library, and I wanted to read some shorter books so that it felt like I was progressing, but also because it's satisfying to get the beginning and the ending into sort of one day or one afternoon. I find that quite satisfying. So there's a couple of ways that you can take this piece of advice. So it could be that you look for the shorter books that are already in your to be read pile. You will probably be able to find the amount of pages or chapters online and sort of make your decision based on this. It could be that you go for a standalone book rather than the first of a series, because again that would be shorter. Or it could be that you go to the library or your local bookshop and you specifically look for short books to read, and this will help you to progress faster. Advice number 8 is also one that I need to get better at taking myself. So don't be afraid to put a book down because you don't enjoy it, or you're not wanting to finish it, or it's too long, or the words are too small. Don't be worried or stressed about not finishing it. There are many reasons why people don't get on with a book. It could be that you are using an audiobook and the person's voice just annoys you, or it doesn't fit the character, or something about their reading style just isn't hitting right with you. you don't have to finish it. It's not an obligation. And I know that, as I said, I need to take this advice because even when I'm not enjoying books, I do tend to finish them. And this is probably my stubbornness, but I would be much better off and I'd be a happier reader if I just put the books down and didn't get to the end of them, because sometimes books just, they don't work with everyone, and that is absolutely fine. And the sooner you put down the book that you don't like, rather than just pushing through it, the sooner that you can get to a book that you really do want to read. And as I said, books aren't made for a blanket perfect for everyone. Some books I really enjoy and my friends don't, and vice versa, and that is fine. You don't have to finish them. If that's a reason that you're finishing less books because you're putting off finishing the book you're currently on, you don't have to finish it, it's fine. And I think a lot of people find that quite difficult, to not finish a book and get to the ending, especially if it's recommended. But so here is the finished square. I've done 6 rounds, and this again, just to remind you, is for the cover of Tess of d'Urberville. So it goes between a grey, black and sort of yellow mixed colour and a light yellow, which is beautiful. So just to finish off my pieces of advice, I've got 2 more pieces left for you to help you read more this year. So the first one is to reward yourself when you finish books. So this could be after every book that you finish. It could be after every chapter. Maybe you have a square of chocolate. Maybe that after you finish 3 books you buy another one. It could be that you finish 2 older books, and for every 2 books that you finish you read one that you've just bought. Hopefully that makes sense if you've got quite a big collection. If you haven't got a big collection, it may be that you buy another audiobook once you've finished, or you buy yourself a new book, or you take yourself to the library and get some more out. Just a little something to motivate you to keep going. Because if you are trying to get through quite a lot of books, if you find it quite difficult to read rather than look at your phone or watch TV, then you may need a little something to help keep you going and keep you motivated. Personally, I like to read a couple of books that I'm less excited about or that have been in my stash for ages, and then I'll reward myself by reading a book that I'm really, really excited to read, and that just helps keep the momentum going. And the last bit of advice I have for you is to remember why you wanted to read more to start with. For example, I want to read more books so that I can get them off of my bookshelf and that I can give myself a bit more space so that things are a little less squashed on the bookshelf that I have. And by reading more books, the ones that I don't enjoy as much, I am selling, so that's a little bit of extra money, and it will help me hopefully feel a little less stressed about the amount of books that are on my to be read pile. So that's why I'm doing it, for peace of mind, for destashing, and to clear a bit of room as well. It may be that you are wanting to read more so that you can advance your knowledge on a certain subject. It could be that you're reading self-help books and you want to sort of be better at conversations, or that you want to make yourself less anxious or less stressed, etc. Or it could be that you're trying to get through a certain series of books. It could be that you want to start an Instagram page, or that you want to meet new people, or it could be that it's just a better alternative to read as opposed to sit on your phone or watching TV. Whatever it is, try and keep that in mind when you are reading, especially when it's on days where you're struggling a little bit more, because it will help sort of keep the goal in your head, and hopefully it will help sort of push you more towards getting to where you want to be. So I hope that you have found this video quite useful. If you have any other pieces of advice to help people to read more, drop them below. And other than that, I hope that you are well, and I will see you soon for some more crochet and book and sewing related content. Take care, all the best. Bye.